You're terrific. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Senate Democratic Caucus. I'm Allison Clarkson, and today we have a full agenda. We are going to first hear from Senator Sears about H128, and then we're going to have a presentation from the Joint Fiscal Office on ARPA's interplay with the big bill and one-time money and the governor's ARPA request. So it's we have a full agenda. So I'm going to pass the baton off to Senator Sears to launch us.
Thank you, Allison. I'll do my best. H128 is a bill that would prohibit the use of a gay panic defense. About 9 states have done so thus far. And if you compare that with some of the things that are going on in other states regarding the rights of individuals who are gay, transgender, etc., LBG, and I always screw that up, but it says that Vermont really cares, I think. The gay panic defense is when someone kills or seriously injures someone else, and then claims that the offender was panicked because of an excuse or justification that the other individual was gay. One of the more famous cases is from 2015 from Austin, Texas, when a man named Daniel Spencer invited another musician, James Miller, to his Austin apartment to play music together. Later that night, Miller stabbed Spencer 4 times, killing him. Miller then cleaned Spencer's apartment, went back to his own home, changed clothes, and contacted the police to report killing Spencer. While there was no physical evidence to suggest an attempted sexual assault, the defense attorney argued at trial in 2018 that since Miller had never been in trouble with the police before, the only rational explanation for his committing the murder was that Spencer had tried to sexually assault him. In this instance, the gay panic defense was successful. The jury convicted Miller of criminally negligent homicide, the lowest grade of felony in Texas. Ultimately, the court punished Miller with only a 6-month jail term and a 10-year probation sentence. Your Committee on Judiciary spent a lot of time discussing H128. And it's really a very short bill. It's 2 pages long. And what it does is the House, when they passed the bill, it wasn't clear what they intended in terms of the sentencing phase of the portion of the trial. So, for example, somebody might be found guilty of murder, but then at sentencing claim that the reason they did it was because of using the gay panic defense. And this was the biggest argument in our committee, was whether or not we should have I don't think there was much disagreement about the prosecution side, whether you should be able to use that at trial. But in sentencing, should somebody be able to use that defense? There was a lot of back and forth in committee about it, a lot of discussion. In the final analysis, the committee voted 3-2 to add in during sentencing phase so that it covers both the prosecution phase as well as sentencing. Probably one of the examples I used, it wasn't a gay panic defense, but of trying to mitigate the circumstances that you're sentencing of the act was the Melendez brothers in California who murdered their parents and then asked the court for mercy since they were now orphans. And while that didn't really sway the court, it just shows what someone might go to in order to justify their behavior. The Senate, the Judiciary Committee also added the words non-forcible, non-criminal romantic or sexual advance towards the defendant. So that we make clear that you can't use the panic defense against someone using the victim's gender identity, sexual orientation of a crime victim, even if it's inaccurate. So that would do, and I think it was sometime in the 1990s that the Bar Association, maybe it was 2000 something, but years ago, the Bar Association called for this, that there should be the gay panic that should be outlawed. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the bill. Again, the controversy in our committee really revolved around the use of the panic defense during sentencing. The committee as a whole voted 3-2 on that provision in favor of not being allowed to use it during sentencing, but voted 5-0-0 on the bill itself.
Thank you, Senator Sears. Any questions before we turn to our presentation? I don't think I see any. So if anybody has them, please be in touch with members of.
Senator Ballant has a question. Senator
Senator Ballant.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I think it's really wonderful that we're taking this up. One of the things that I think I've said to some of you before is when I was in middle school, I really knew that I wanted to be in public service. And it was very difficult for me to imagine that as an openly gay person. And at that time, a man named Harvey Milk had been assassinated. He was the first, or one of the first openly gay people serving in public office in the United States. And I don't know if you recall, but when he was murdered, the defense that was used was also a very bizarre defense. It was the Twinkie defense, that the man who killed him was crazed by eating too much junk food. And so there has been a history in this country of negating violence against LGBTQ people with very bizarre defense tactics. And so I see this as part and parcel of that history. So I'm excited that we are taking this up. So thank you.
Thank you. And it just for everybody else, it's on the floor tomorrow on notice today. So please ask Judiciary and Senator Sears questions if you have them offline. Oh, I see somebody with a question. I see Senator Sirotkin.
Yes, Senator Sears, could you just describe what the arguments in opposition were briefly?
For the sentencing section?
Sentencing?
They were briefly that one could argue most anything at sentencing, it doesn't necessarily get accepted, but you have a right to argue various factors in whatever the crime was. I think I probably just described the most bizarre one was killing your parents and then arguing you're an orphan. But it doesn't necessarily mean it would be accepted. This bans that use of that defense at sentencing. It's still not clear to us, Senate Judiciary, whether the House intended to ban it at sentencing or not. But the Attorney General felt that the bill that came to us did not. And so we were rather forced to make a decision whether we wanted to or not, we being the Senate Judiciary Committee. But, there's always mitigating factors and aggravating factors that are brought up, the aggravating by the prosecution, the mitigating factors by the defense. This is just one mitigating factor that can't be brought into the sentencing phase of the trial.
Is there any other examples of this in our law at all where we bar other kinds of discrimination? Or
I don't know. That's a good question.
The rape shield is barred.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones that is in not being able to use it in sentencing,
Right, right.
where you blame the victim of the rape because of the way they were dressed or whatever. But that I think is the only one that was pointed out to us.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think any other questions I'd encourage to ask offline because our time is now quite tight with our presentation. So Senator McCormick, if you'd ask Senator
Yeah,
Caucus, that would be great.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I was
Okay.
going to respond to Michael, but yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Actually, the case, if I just might, it's Montana v. Egelhoff that does the constitutional analysis about this issue that Michael just raised.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We are going to pivot to the JFO presentation on ARPA and the big bill. And to tee it up, I'm going to pass the baton to Senator Bell.
So thank you. Over the last couple weeks, I know that many senators have been anxious just because there's so many moving parts. And I want to really thank Senator Kitchell for her time the other night. We've been trying to get at what's moving with ARPA, what's happening with the budget, what's in the House proposal. And it's a lot for all of us to keep in mind. And so we thought it would be helpful to have Steve Klein and Stephanie Barrett from Joint Fiscal Office to sort of take us through a couple charts that they worked on yesterday. And I want to give a shout out to Carolyn Wesley in my office, who was really instrumental in pulling this together, and hoping that Steve and Stephanie can take through sort of the major moving parts, and then hopefully give Senator Kitchell a chance at the end if she has things that she's also thinking about. I often say that Senator Kitchell's brain is a lot like a Rubik's Cube. She moves one thing over and she sees that you can slide another thing in and around. And I know my brain doesn't work that way. And I know some of you need a little bit more hand-holding as I do. So thank you to Steve and Stephanie. And I hope this helps to illuminate where we're at right now. So take it away, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know, Carolyn, do you want to put a copy of the first document on the screen, or do you tend to work that way? I don't know what, I can just do it orally either way.
Happy to share the screen. I think I need to be given
Yes,
host permissions maybe.
Asha is going to give Carolyn co-hosting ability. Asha,
Great.
is that okay?
Okay, so let me just start off. This is a unique situation with the ARPA funds. And we have all this money. We have 1.52 million, which the state set aside, much more money on the table with no guidance out yet. So it's that's one of the wild cards. We could get guidance tomorrow. We could get guidance in a month or a lot more. The second thing is it's really different than CRF that happened last year. And last year, you were right in the middle of a pandemic. You know, the revenues were jumping all over the place. The CRF, we had 9 months to spend it. In this case, with ARPA, we have 4 years to spend the money. And we also have this other wild card, which is more money on the way. And you've all heard about this federal infrastructure bill, may or may not happen. The proposal originally was 2.3 trillion. Even if it's only 800 billion, which is what some group of Republicans and Democrats have talked about, and just as a sense of scale, that could be another 1.4 billion for Vermont. So we're in this period where there's a lot of money that's here today, and more money that may be coming, and unclear what it's being used for. So one of the first things, just to give you a sense what the Appropriations Committee did in H315 and what the legislature passed, is they pretty much put a fence around this ARPA money. And they said that the ARPA money, the capital funds that were in the bill, and the ESSER funds in the most recent bill have to be appropriated. They can't be spent randomly, or which is a real area of concern. And it provides a safeguard that the full legislature can make spending choices. There's no JFC process like it was the case with the coronavirus relief fund that only had 9 months. So there was this ongoing process where we kept getting pressure to spend the money. In this case, that's not in the plans at this point, and I don't think it will be. It does mean that if there's unfavorable guidance that comes out in some of the appropriations, the additional funding will have to wait till the upcoming session. And we may need to even strengthen this more, and that's something that Senator Probst was thinking about. And like, do we limit the administration's authority to use excess receipts? But there really is a theme here. There's different money. The timing pressure is not such that it requires action today. And the legislature has sort of laid down at this point a marker to keep it for policy committees as opposed to the administration just spending it. The second thing is we've already used about 59 million of ARPA in the House 315, which the governor didn't sign, but he let it become law. And some of the money you can see is being used for A&R, agriculture, economic development, higher ed, broadband, and education air quality. So these are just some of the money that's already out there. 15 million is out there, but there's these concepts running around of both spending in FY22 and allocations or buckets of money for the future. And so what the House did is they proposed 474 million of spending in FY22, but they actually put and you can see it's 296 in the budget, 150 in broadband, 30 in capital, a little bit more in economic development. But they also proposed 650 million total of where they do a ring around it, said this is obligated. So then this governor proposed spending 372 million in FY22, yet he allocated the full $1.29 billion. And so one of the questions the Senate's going to have to deal with is, while there's a question about what do we spend in FY22, there really is there's an argument for not doing this bucketing for the future. It's one of the things that you have to decide what to do. It says a free meeting alert. It expires in 10 minutes. Okay. So the next thing is competing priorities. Just want to flag that not only do we have a little CRF left, we have general fund, we have ARPA money. So one thing the Senate Appropriations Committee has to do is sort of decide which of the funding sources should be used in which case, and how do we best do that. The other thing, though, with the competing priorities is the governor really is using the money for bricks and mortar sort of long-term infrastructure, whereas this is actually being played out in Washington right now, where Biden proposed defining infrastructure as human infrastructure as well as physical infrastructure. And, the same type of things here. He put nothing in for any of the higher ed, nothing in for human services, utility arrearages, judiciary, criminal justice. And he's been, pretty much staying out of the pension thing. So all these sort of things that are part of the state's infrastructure are not part of his proposal, but they're not the bricks and mortar thing. So one of the things the legislature did, the House did, and the Senate is thinking about is just what do we do? What is the right thing to do with this money? Is it really maybe like the House basically chose not to limit it to bricks and mortar, but to deal with the state colleges and put some money into human services and issues like that. And I think the Senate is looking at those issues too. And so that the governor has sort of created this, that's going to be a balancing test. It's just what is this money being used for? There's three different issues I just want to quickly flag, and then I'll pass on the second document. One is that we have understanding the uncertainty is, not obligating the out years. This whole question that we really have money that we want to get out now because you want people to start and deal with this transformation, and but you also have this potential money coming, and you don't know where it's going to come. There's been talk about it could be more in clean water, it could be more in transportation, it could be broadband, it could be in human service areas. I know there's a lot of talk about childcare, and we have really two bills. We have the infrastructure bill coming federally, and also the Biden's first full year budget will be coming out in the federal fiscal year FY 2022 starts in October 1st. And so we may see a fair amount of shifting going on in that. So you have a chance sort of late fall or whenever these bills come out, it could really just shake up the things and change priorities. And it also means, because of the 4-year nature of this money, that it gives you time to sort of talk with your constituents and work with people and try to figure out what makes sense. So one of the concepts being played with, and the chair can talk about this more than I can, is just appropriating what you need to do in 22, but saving money for the full legislative policy committees and everybody to think about in the context of the session coming up. The other thing is, with the federal guidance not being there, it's another reason to sort of maybe we wait. Maybe we do what we need to do now, take some risks on guidance, but understand that we'll know more. The other thing is that the second area is that the governor has put a really firm request out that you all can ignore, think about, whatever, but what's being talked about is putting all the appropriations in the budget in a separate section like we do with Pay Act in the end of the bill, so it's all there together. And so that's being talked about rather than spreading it out in other bills. It's a change from what the House is doing, but you would still do like, I guess we do in the transportation bill, where the allocations get happening elsewhere, but the money would all be appropriated in this bill. And that's something else that's being talked about. And then the third thing on this list is just this whole question about focusing also on the human infrastructure, not just the physical infrastructure, using this money for that broader concept of what does recovery mean in Vermont, and who should it benefit. So that's sort of a quick summary of the the concepts. And I don't know if we want to go to the other document or take 2 minutes worth of questions or whatever you all recommend. We could go right through it, whatever you want.
Stephen, if I could, I would love for you to go to the second document, just
Okay.
to have it all together, and then go to questions and comments.
Okay, so the second document, I guess, Carolyn, you'll make this one disappear and put the other one up?
Yes, I've already done that. We do need to do a little bit of shuffling because of the way the meeting is run with the host. So it may take just a second.
Okay.
Appreciate everyone's patience.
Well, maybe while we're getting the document up, I'll explain it. What we've really done on this next document is the spreadsheet. We've talked about the types of areas where the funding is used. We've given the House position and what the governor's position is, and just sort of laid out so you can start seeing the components that are being discussed. And that's what this document tries to do. And it does create sort of categorizations of spending. So I'm running out of words to fill a blank time. I'll be patient.
Steve, is this going to be available to us? Can you send us these documents?
Yeah, we haven't actually, they're sort of draft forms. We haven't really proofed them, and there may be some small changes, but maybe we could.
Right.
Oh, it's up. Yay. Okay. So the first thing is, let me just go through these categories quickly and then we'll open it up. The first is just the administration asked for 17 million to be spent for administrative costs. The House has put 950,000 directly to help municipal assistance in 315, but that's a real question. Do we give them just carte blanche on that, or is that built into different programs? It'll be something to think about. The House doesn't have it in, it's an administration request. Health, well-being, and justice. And this is a category, you can see what happened. We spent 29 million of ARPA in the 315. The House 315 is what the governor enacted without signature this week. And then the House added another 9 million, and you can see the governor's proposed nothing. And this is for things like air quality, summer meals, mental health, reach up. And so this is just an area, this is one of those real key areas of differences you'll see. The next block, workforce and economic development, if you want to switch it up so that whole block is on the screen, it'd be great. Yeah, so this one you can again see what that, we did put money in 315 in the blue bar, and we also put some general fund in there, because one of the things that with the ARPA guidance not being in place, it's really, a lot of these agencies are going to wait till they have guidance before they spend it. And so by putting out general fund, you can use that to do some of the remediation, get it going, the VORAC for the community groups, you can just move that right away. So one of the things the legislature did in 315 is say, let's put some general fund out. You'll see this coming up, the strategy later. So you see 26 million in the bill, the 315, and 10 of that went for economic recovery grants. The other 16 went for a variety of other things up above. But you can start seeing the House put 103 million, but most of their money went to the VSC, the Vermont State Colleges, the UVM, the VSAC, and some for brownfield remediation. And what you can see in the governor's proposal, it's almost all going to economic recovery grants, some offshore trail capital stuff, and permitting. So there's a real stark difference about how they're treating workforce and economic development. And so part of it's going to be bridging the House direction and the Senate and the governor's direction and figuring out where the legislature and the Senate want to be on this issue. So why don't I go down the next block, and actually I'm going to take a break. Stephanie, do you want to, if there's anything you want to add, feel free to jump in. On that.
Well, why don't you finish the blocks and
Okay.
I'll just add a few
And
comments.
let's give Stephanie a minute, then turn it over to the chair. The housing issue is one where the whole issue about type of funds becomes a real issue, because the language in the ARPA bill does not really lend itself to building housing and bricks and mortar. It's not apparent that it could be used for that. It might be, and we're waiting for guidance on that. So you can see the legislature gave 10 million of general fund in the 315 bill, and the House put another 43 million of general fund in their budget proposal, because general fund can be used in that way. And again, if you're trying to do something quickly and get the money out for homeless or for the VHIP or whatever, though, it's really important to have some of those issues not standing in your way of interpretations and how the money can be used. So the governor has proposed doing it in ARPA.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment because we are still getting this meeting countdown that I think has something to do with me being co-host. So thanks everyone for your patience. I'm going to try to stop being co-host. I've shared the document with Asha to see if she can share it instead, and if that will take away this scary countdown timer. So thank you everyone.
Okay, well, but I won't. I'll try to be brave and won't get scared by the countdown time. Oh, sharing just went away. Okay.
Thank you all, and thanks for bearing with the technical difficulties. I'll be seeing if I can share the document that Carolyn had shared with me. Thank you all.
Okay, so maybe while she's sharing it, I'll pull it up and keep.
You want me to take over?